lot more of a lengthy service schedule versus I think what a lot of the domestic cars show. I mean, there's time frames and everything from, transmission services to brake fluid flushes and all that stuff. So we do a lot of maintenance stuff, and then, suspension repairs, everything like that. It's all.
That's one of the things I was going to ask you. As far as brake fluid exchanges, I think the European cars were one of the first models to really see that.
They were.
How important it was, and making sure.
Yeah, a lot of them recommend every 2 years. There is a mileage something, but a lot of the manufacturers vary in that. But every 2 years is a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, and some of the reasons for doing that, of course, brake fluid attracts moisture.
It does.
And that moisture when it's inside the brake fluid, it can cause. But also, the braking system works at a much higher temperature than it worked at before. And of course, one of the items that brake fluid has to be able to do is increase boiling point.
That's correct.
It has to have a very high boiling point because you don't want to get up to a certain temperature and then all of a sudden, boom, your brake fluid starting to boil.
Lose your brake feel and lose the pedal and all that, yeah.
Yeah, and so in the beginning, when things would come up in a domestic car needed a brake fluid flush, and you'd say brake fluid flush, they'd say, that's crazy. I'm not going to flush my brake fluid. And then as time went on, and European cars, they were more and more all getting brake fluid flushes.
Oh yeah, pretty much everybody does it now too.
Thing.
Yeah, because I worked at a Chevrolet dealer for a while, and you talked to somebody about that, and they were like, "What do you mean? I've never even heard of that." And I see now, even the domestic cars are all that's becoming a service now too, is brake flushes and all that stuff just to keep obviously the system in good shape and all that. And even like I worked on some track cars, things like that, where you put brake fluid in as an even higher boiling point, so that when they're out on the track heating the brakes up and all that, it just you don't lose your brakes as the time goes on.
Yeah, so doing things like flushing the brake system, very important. Cooling system is huge.
Oh, very much so.
Because there's so many things. The cooling system is the same way. After a period of time, the component that has to do with corrosion resistance.
Yep, the corrosion inhibitors that they put in the coolant.
Inhibitors, that was the word I was trying to think of. That depletes over time.
It does.
And because of that, you can build up corrosion. You start running into things like water pumps, radiators, heater cores, all of these things. And years ago, that wasn't a big deal. Because
no, not as much.
People would keep the car 100,000 miles, and after about 10 years, 100,000 miles, they were getting rid of the car anyway, so it really didn't matter a whole lot if they ran into some issues like that. But now people are keeping their cars 12, 15, 20 years or more, like me.
Yeah, and even especially, again, with the European cars, the cooling systems are so complex now. There's air-to-water intercoolers for turbocharged cars, so you have more coolant running through more components, basically, and everything's got, check valves and things that can just start going bad with, a deteriorated, not so good, well-functioning coolant, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and there's some things that can go wrong with some of those, and if they're not maintained properly, that can make a grown man cry.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it can be expensive. It can definitely get expensive.
Yeah, but it is well worth it when you go in and do the things that you need to maintain that vehicle, do the services as they're recommended. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to have a great shop like Eurofix and many others around the country, but find a good shop to maintain that.